All right, everybody, welcome to the video here for benchmark number 2, the review sheet. So for the first question, we're talking about similar triangles. I know that they're similar because if these lines are parallel to each other, I know these angles correspond and are congruent, so I have similarity going on here. So if I take the small triangle has a side of 9, it becomes this bigger side of 14. The small triangle also has a side of AB, which is 9.2, which corresponds to the bigger side, which we don't know and we're trying to find. So I'll make that X. In class, we might have even redrawn them as two separate triangles to clearly identify what sides are proportional to each other. If you want to do that, go right ahead. So our proportion is going to come out to be 9 over 14 is equal to 9.2 over X. Cross multiply, I get 9x is equal to whatever 14 times 9.2 is. So if I do 14 times 9.2, I wind up getting 128.8. Divide by 9, and we get an answer here of about 14.3. 14.31, so we'll round appropriately to 14.3. The next question uses some of the rules about a rhombus. So in a rhombus, I know the diagonals bisect each other, so each of these two parts are 8, and each of these two parts are 15. I also know that I have a right angle anytime that the two lines are perpendicular, and I know that diagonals are perpendicular for a rhombus. So essentially, I have a Pythagorean theorem question. So I can do 8 squared plus 15 squared equals x squared. So I have 64 plus 225 equals x squared, or 289 equals x squared, giving me x equals the square root of 289, which is 17. The other thing I know about a rhombus is all the sides are the same, so the perimeter is going to be 68. For number 3, it says, which statement is always true? So since this is a parallelogram, it says HN is equal to half of AD. That will not always be true, right? This one diagonal is not always going to be half of the length of the other. Sometimes it might be true, but it won't always be true. B says AS is equal to half of AD. That is always true. Why? Because it says that the diagonals bisect each other. This piece and this piece are always the same. So they're a 1-to-2 ratio. These two angles won't always be congruent, neither will these two. The next question gives us the coordinates of 3, 5, and 8, -5. So if I start at 3, 5, and go to 8, -5, and I know I'm looking at this very randomly, it's just so I can count some imaginary boxes. Hopefully I could draw a better line than that too. Okay. So I want to go from 3, 5 and get to 8, -5. So I'm going to go down 10, and I'm going to go over 5. And I want to make 5 pieces. So if I start at 3, 5, and I go down 2, and then go down 2, and then go down 2, and cut this up into 5 equal parts, I can create it so that my line segment's proportional. Now, since it's M Q represents 2 pieces, I have to do this down 2 thing twice, right? So I'm going to go down 2 twice. I'm going to go to the right 1 twice because this 5 I'm going to separate into pieces of 1. So if I start at 3, 5 and I go to the right 2 and down 4, I'm at the point 5, 1. The counting of boxes thing is easier to do on your graph paper. The same thing happens for number 5. This is almost an identical question, but notice I'm separating it into 6 pieces. That's circled weird. All right, so I'm separating this into 6 pieces. So when I start to count my boxes, I want to know how far to go. So if I start at -6, -2, and I go to the right and then up a whole bunch, I get to +6 and 7. So I'm going to go to the right 12, and I'm going to go up 9. I want to separate that into 6 pieces, meaning I'm going to go to the right 2 and up 1.5, right? 9 separated into 6 pieces is 1.5 pieces. So I need to start at 6, -2, go to the right 2, and go up 1.5. So that's going to be -4, -1/2. Number 6 says a child's tent has been modeled with a pyramid with a square base with measures of 60 inches and a height of 84 inches. Notice it says cubic foot. So this pyramid is going to have a square base. It's going to come to a point, something like this, and there's going to be this line going to the middle. This is going to be 5 feet and 5 feet. If I take 84 and divide it by 12, I think that's 7 feet tall. So the volume formula for a pyramid is 1/3 the area of the base times the height. The area of the base is 25. I know it's 25 because 5 times 5 is 25 times 7. So if I do 25 times 7 times 1/3, I wind up getting approximately 58. Number 7 says we have a 20-foot post leaning against a wall. It makes an angle with the ground of 70 degrees. Here's the ground. Here's the wall. It says how far up on the wall will it go? This is just a basic SOHCAHTOA question, right? Here's my angle. Here's the opposite. Here's the hypotenuse. So I could say the sine of 70 is equal to the opposite over the hypotenuse. Multiply by 20 to get rid of the fraction. We don't want fractions. I have x equals 20 sine of 70. So if I do 20 sine of 70, I wind up getting 15 point, wait a minute. I wind up getting 18.79, which rounds to 18.8. Number 8 is another trigonometry question. So this is a cosine of 40. It's equal to 14 over x. I know a couple of you asked me in class what happens when the x is in the bottom. We did this in class. We multiplied both sides by x. So then we got x cosine of 40 equals 14. And then I could divide away the cosine of 40 and just really use your algebra skills here. Pretend cosine of 40 is just another number, right? What would I do next? Okay. So I could say x is equal to 14 over the cosine of 40, right? So if I do 14 divided by the cosine of 40, I wind up getting 18.3 or about 18. The endpoints of one side of a pentagon are these 2 points. I need to do the distance formula here because I want perimeter, I want distances. So if I do the distance formula here, I'm going to say -1 minus 2 squared plus 4 minus 3 squared. So we wind up getting 9 plus 1, so the square root of 10. Now there are 5 sides in a pentagon, so there's 5 square roots of 10. Number 10, which equation represents a line that is perpendicular to this line? So to be perpendicular, it has to have a negative reciprocal slope. To determine slope, I need to get y by itself. So I have 2x equals y plus 7, subtract 7 from both sides, and I get y equals 2x minus 7. So the slope of this line is 2. So the perpendicular slope is -1/2. Number 11, in a right triangle, the sine of an angle is equal to the cosine of its complement. So if these are equal to each other, these two angles must add up to 90 degrees. So I have 40 minus x plus 3x equals 90. That's the only way to make these true. So I have 2x plus 40 equals 90. Subtract 40, and I have 2x equals 50, so x is 25. That's what they wanted me to find. So now I know my value of x. Number 12 is the exact same thing. So just remembering that these two things are going to be equal to 90. I can combine some stuff up here. 2x plus 50 equals 90, or 2x equals 40, or x equals 20. Next one says that arc CD is 46 degrees, arc DB is 102 degrees. Well, that tells me that this angle is this arc is 78 degrees, and it wants us to find angle CFE. CFE is this angle. So I have to find this other angle here, which would be 134 degrees. So if I take 1/2 of 134 plus 102, I can wind up getting my answer here of 118 degrees for angle CFE. Number 14, if a rectangle was continuously rotated around W, what figure would be formed? So if W was the line of rotation, this is going to go all the way around, this is going to go all the way around. We can see we're getting a cylinder. That one's pretty easy. All right, so for number 15, we notice that we have a cyclic quadrilateral. So we have a quadrilateral that has angles that are in it, and these angles opposite each other are going to add up to 180 degrees. It wants us to find angle ADC. So if I take 180 minus 72, I get 108. That's what we went over in class. Number 16 talks about a circle. So for a circle's diameter, so we have to complete the square here. So the number I have to add here is 9 to make this a perfect square trinomial. If I do that, I have to add 9 also to the other side. So this becomes y plus 3 squared. X squared is going to stay, and this all equals 16. So that tells me the radius is 4, so it can't be C or D. And the center is going to be 0, -3, so that's choice B. We have one more of that same type of question. So we need to complete the square here twice. So I have x squared plus 6x plus 9. I have y squared minus 4y plus 4. And 23 plus 9 plus 4. So I'm completing the square by including numbers here and here. So it's going to become x plus 3 squared, y minus 2 squared, and whatever that comes out to be, 36. So I know the radius is 6, so it's not A or C. I know the center is -3, +2, so there's your answer. Hopefully this video helped. Right, you'll have an attachment with all of the questions and all the answers as well. All right, if you want to look at that too. Good luck studying.